This is it. This is the one thing that most people say is their biggest barrier to fully embracing veganism. It is, of course, cheese. Let's see if we can smash that barrier down today. Anton Petrov is a returning guest. He does gourmet plant-based dining and cooking classes, and he does foraging. His stuff blows my mind. Chandra is a post-punk chef. I mean, it would be quite hard to be pre-punk these days. She's the author of 10 vegan books, blimey, and owner of 2 vegan restaurants. I feel like you'd win Monopoly. You're kind of maxed out there. That's brilliant. And human Adonis Joshua Katcher is co-founder of award-winning Rind Cheese. He also is designer and founder of a sustainable vegan luxury fashion brand, Brave Gentleman. And he looks like what I assumed I'd look like following a vegan diet, except I look like a plant-based Bernard Manning. That's a reference that will be lost on you, Joshua, but you can enjoy Googling it later. I blame the fake cheese. Speaking of which, that's what today's podcast is all about. And I thought maybe we'll split it into 2 halves, effectively. We'll talk about cheeses that you can buy and then cheeses you can make and stuff you can do with that. So I'm going to start by just going round the virtual table and asking, what are your favorite commercially available cheeses? Joshua, let's start with you.
I have to say Rind, my own cheese company.
Such a surprise. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that what I was always missing and craving from the cheese foodscape was like the moldy stuff, the stuff with the real mold on it. And,
funky
and
stuff.
So that's what we set out to make, and we did.
I don't think we can get you in the UK yet. Is this a soft cheese? Is it a hard blue cheese? What is the?
It's considered a soft ripened cheese, so it would be comparable to a camembert, to a Brie. We also do like a Brie camembert blue cheese combo. So it's in the range of soft, but the longer you age it, the harder it gets. And we've had stuff that we've aged up to 2 years, and then you end up with something more like a Parmesan. But we have such a high turnover that we're not able to age things that long yet with our limited space.
That's like in the last podcast we recorded, someone gave me a recipe for what to do with stale cookies. I was like, what are you talking about? Cookies don't go stale. Issa, apart from loyalty to your friend Joshua, what cheese, I mean, you can whisper if you want, what cheeses do you like?
I was just going to ask him to bring some over today. I'll trade you.
You guys are 15 blocks. Oh, look at he's fingering his cheese. Oh, come on.
Can you seriously?
That's so mean.
We have outdoor dining. Come hang out with me today.
Maybe this evening I can bring some over and we can have a little.
That doesn't sound like a commitment.
Cheese.
That sounds a little wishy-washy.
Do you have like an OnlyFans page, and is that what you do? You just finger vegan cheeses on it?
That is very adult themed.
It's a mature cheese. It's rated. Sure. Okay. Anyway, Issa.
My mom might be listening to this.
In which case, hello.
Disclaimer, I don't eat that much vegan store-bought cheeses, and I haven't tried Joshua's yet, so that's going to happen this weekend. And then I really like Miyoko, obviously. I'm pretty basic. I like those mature Violife, mature cheddar slices.
And Anton, when you're slumming it on something that you haven't created from scratch yourself, what do you go for?
So I in the previous podcast I mentioned this brand, and so I haven't changed my mind since then. That's definitely my most favorite is I Am Not Okay company cheese. It's I Am Not like NUT. There's literally nothing that I tasted better than the cheese from this company.
It's good stuff. It's a funny thing that, country by country, looking at what each country seems to have focused on, because there are some very good European cheeses, like hard cheeses from Switzerland. I think Vegusto is based in Switzerland, and I'd make a mention of their piquant cheese, which is really good, and quite a pioneering one. But in France,
Oh
Yeah. Have you had this?
Yeah, like I think when was the first Paris vegan day? Isa, when we were there
right.
together,
Our
like
Paris Day.
was it like a decade ago? The gusto was like
Yeah.
Right? We'd have a baguette and hummus and Vagusto and like eat that. And our time, whatever, our circadian rhythms were off. So we'd be eating this
Of
cheese at
course.
3 a.m.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
Wow. Let's get on to the questions that people have sent in. Don't forget, you can always send us a question. It's podcast@veganlifemag.com. We will field your question to the best people. And let's start with Lucinda, who says, my best mate will always say, I think I could go vegan, but I think I could go vegetarian, but I could never ever go vegan because I absolutely love cheese. Oh, wow. It sounds like me 12 years ago. I want to make her a little cheese hamper. Can you give me some inspiration? She's a bit of a blue cheese nut. So any good vegan blue cheese? Well, it's kind of same answer, I'm guessing, Joshua. You're going to say rind.
we use we culture it, we inoculate it, it's aged, it grows, grows the Rockefeller mold, and
Nice.
it's not like, some vegan cheeses they'll add spirulina to kind of look like blue cheese, but that doesn't really have the same flavor as blue. So I recommend, eat mold.
Yeah.
That's good for you.
Eat more mold. That's a top tip. I don't know if I should be saying that legally. Isa, are you a fan of blue cheeses? Like, how long have you been vegan?
30 years, 32 years.
Wow.
I know. And it's weird because I'm only 28. So how did that happen?
Yeah, incredible.
So
In your previous life.
Vegan ovum.
yeah, I was vegan like 4 years before I was born. No, I went vegan at 16, so it's been a while. But I was a big fan of blue cheese. I've had Blue Heron, who's out of, I believe, Vancouver. They have a really wonderful blue cheese I had once. And I agree, like culturing is probably the best way to go to actually get the blue cheese flavor. There's ways to do it to kind of cheat if you're a home cook. You won't get that exact flavor, and yeah, you're adding the blue color. But I really love to use sauerkraut juice to kind of get a funky flavor if you're a home cook that doesn't want to like create, molds by yourself.
Nice. I'm constantly doing that.
Yeah,
It's
I
nothing
don't
to do with cooking.
Not to like ruin my credibility, but what do you all think of Cheeeeeese blue cheese?
You know what? I love it. It's great. It's one of those things that I think, as a broad point, I would say to Lucinda, which is if you're asking someone to go directly from dairy cheese into the world of veganism, and you're trying to kind of graft them on with cheese, it's a bit of a jump. I mean, there are some fantastically good vegan cheeses out there now, but you have to take time for your palate to adjust. And, no non-vegan will believe that soy milk stops tasting like wet cardboard water and ends up tasting creamy and delicious. No, they won't believe you, but your palate adapts and adjusts.
Advocate for veganism.
Yeah,
Well,
I know.
we've with some of our cheeses, we've done blind tastings. So my co-founder Dina and I did a blind tasting at Essex Market, which is like a big food market in New York City, and we gave out samples of our blue and our camembert to unsuspecting passerbys who were not vegan at all, and we asked them to guess what kind of cheese it was. And most people guessed that it was some sort of goat cheese or some sort of French cheese, but nobody knew that it was vegan. And when we revealed it,
I'm coming over.
when we revealed it to them, the video's online. You can look at it on YouTube. But it's pretty fun. I love seeing people's reaction. We've had chefs, there's one of the chefs at the Mercer Kitchen in New York City tasted it, and he was really excited about it. We're getting a lot of requests from non-vegan spaces, which is exciting.
That's fantastic. Anton, are you a blue cheese fan?
Oh, yes, blue cheese fan. I did make an attempt in my previous cafe that I used to work. I made few attempts of making a homemade blue cheese using the Rockefeller bacteria. It came out pretty well, but unfortunately, I feel like you need to give it at least 6 to 8 weeks. Ours did last only for 4 weeks before we eat it. Before we ate it all, basically. So I wish I could time test it a little bit better, but even that initial result was good enough. That mold is what makes a big difference, definitely. And another brand in Europe that I found preparing for this podcast was Cashew Parmesan. It's a German company that their produce looks very, very good.
There seems to be a recurrent problem among cheese manufacturers that they keep eating it all before it's finished. I would say if you want to try something out there and funky, like if you want like deep funk, that kind of blue cheese funk, Lucinda, go to an Asian grocer and find a little jar of fermented tofu. Because that stuff honks in the best way.
Or like natto?
It's not like natto because that doesn't really have... That's got a slightly cheesy kind of flavor, but fermented tofu is like eating concentrated Stilton or Roquefort. Like it is hardcore, very salty, but got a very, very intense blue cheese flavor. If you were to put that with some pasta or something, I would defy anyone to tell the difference. It's really good.
I don't think it's a good idea to go from, like, the reason I can't go vegan is blue cheese. Like, if that's the one thing, just eat everything else vegan and start with other cheeses and eat blue cheese once a month. Like, how often is this person eating blue cheese anyway?
You make an excellent point there. I mean,
Every
it's
day,
terrible on cornflakes.
Dinner,
yeah.
Like, go vegan, eat blue cheese once a month, and then see how it goes.
Yeah. Lucinda, what you need to ask yourself is just how good a friend is this, and are they worth it? No, I'm kidding. Corinne has emailed to say, my star dinner I cook at home for my husband is a pesto and goat's cheese risotto. We are currently on a healthy diet, and we went plant-based a month ago. Nice! I feel like we should have like they have at bars, they ring a bell for when there's a tip. We should have a bell we ring when someone's gone vegan. Anyway, this podcast has given us a lot of good ideas to keep us on track. Could I please have an alternative for my pesto and goat's cheese risotto? Isa, you're up for making pesto from scratch.
Yeah, I mean, who isn't? Does somebody buy pesto? Is that a thing?
Maybe.
Is that an actual thing? Making her pesto.
Yeah. Who would buy? Guys, can we?
I feel.
I buy pesto and stuff.
Yeah. So for the pesto part, definitely adding like cashews for creaminess. I'm sure we'll talk about cashews a lot. Pesto, I know it's crazy, but she's probably making it from scratch with fresh basil, adding a little nutritional used for cheesiness. So everything else for the risotto part, cool. Do your risotto like you usually do, just use cashew cream, use a little nooch, and then you've got the cheesiness for the risotto. For the goat cheese, that's actually one of the easiest cheeses to make at home from like a simple like nut-based, either almonds or cashews, just kind of like pulsing them until they resemble cheese, adding a little bit of coconut oil, again, nutritional yeast, some sort of funky flavor like miso, or again, I love sauerkraut juice. I'm like a big cheater with cheese. Like I do cheater. I take stuff that's already fermented and just add it. So, I think that's like a home cooked method. Yeah, it works. So yeah, just adding funky things to like, there's like more advanced things like adding carrageenan and agar, other sort of like gelatin type things that helps that. But like for the risotto, I'd just say just going a simple like half-hour cheese that you're not really, it's more just like you're blending a couple of things.
I'm finding my forays into vegan cheese making, which I did. This was probably 10 or 11 years ago when there just weren't very many commercially available vegan cheeses. So I had a go. And I found I wasn't grinding my nuts hard enough. I didn't successfully really manage to do that.
Do you use a Vitamix or a...
I did not use a Vitamix, but I hear a lot about them. Are they worth it?
I say so.
Smooth cheese is your goal, then yes. You're not going to get it in a Cuisinart necessarily. What we love about cheese so much is this really delicate balance between saltiness, sweetness, fattiness, and funkiness. And if you can get all those elements together in any way, then you're going to end up with something that is really good. So you like anything fatty, any nut, anything like, you're going to have your salt, you're going to have your sweet. If you put a little bit of sweetness, whether that's, throwing a tiny sprinkle of sugar in there, or a little bit of agave, or something just with a little bit of sweetness, and the funkiness. Like I love Issa's suggestions of like sauerkraut water, or I wonder if have you ever experimented with using the liquid in what's the cabbage, the fermented kimchi.
Absolutely. I'm just such a cheater. Anything that says fermented, I'm like, that's going in cheese.
Yeah.
Issa, do you make cheese at home regularly?
Yeah, I do. And for the restaurant too. So, I make a ton of cheeses. So Swiss, just like a basic cheddar. And again, like I'm not Josh or cheese manufacturer, so I'm just I don't even do Rejuvelac. Like that's like when you ferment a grain and use that to age the cheese. I don't even do that. I'm very much like if it's going to take more than half an hour, I'm not going to do it pretty much. But you can achieve so much in that time with really basic ingredients.
Fantastic. We will come on to perhaps some of your go-to recipes after we've asked the timeless question. What do you do with tofu? I love this question. This isn't necessarily about making cheese. This is just about what do you do with a pack of tofu on an average day? Issa, let's start with you.
What don't I do with it? So, talking about cheese making, one of my favorite and like earliest cheese making experiences was tofu ricotta, and I still eat it weekly. Just like mash up the tofu, really good olive oil, nutritional yeast, some garlic, some lemon juice, and just mash it, and it's slamming. I love it. So tofu ricotta, absolutely. Like if you don't have a protein for your pasta that night, you just plop like a big ass spoonful of it on your pasta. Can we say that?
You certainly can.
Okay.
You certainly can.
It's
I think
so
context is everything, and,
okay.
and it needed that.
It needed to be said.
It
so
did.
Otherwise I bake it, grill it.
Yeah. Stretch it, bend it. Yeah. Anton, last time you came on, you gave us a recipe for a tofu scramble involving fermented gram flour slurry, which I tried and was one of the most majestic things I've ever tasted.
Well done.
So do you have something new for us, and how on earth could you top that?
It's really the simplest thing is roasting it with some soy sauce, few spices. But my most favorite thing is a very, very old recipe, making a kind of a ramen and also marinade for the tofu, where you cook the tofu, you steep tofu in this very rich broth made of onion, garlic, star anise, kombu, and soy sauce, and obviously the water. And the combination of all those ingredients together, and particularly the star anise in combination with onion, garlic, kombu, and soy sauce, it brings out the meatiest, one of the strongest, meatiest flavor profiles. And infusing tofu in that, and then roasting or pan frying the tofu, is truly a marvelous experience, and can be eaten on its own or with anything else. And the good thing is that broth, the leftover, can be utilized in the ramen, and this will be delicious.
Awesome. I'm going to go and blow the dust off my star anise. Sounds wrong. Joshua, what do you do with tofu?
I've never gotten sick of tofu. I feel like the first time I experimented with it in the 90s, I think it was like I didn't really know what to do with it. And I think most people expect tofu to be this like finished thing. And you can have tofu that's good enough to eat on its own if you go to I've been to some Japanese restaurants where they make homemade tofu, and it's so luscious and so delectable that you want to just eat it by itself. So that's possible. And if you're buying like store-bought tofu, there's so many different varieties. You can get like really dense tofu that's been kind of like dried. You can get silken tofu, firm tofu. So depending on what you want, there's so many different ways to use it. But really, it's a vessel. It's a medium. It's a blank canvas. Marinate it. Sauce it. I love getting a really nice silken tofu and using it as a substitute for like an egg drop soup. Just kind of like letting it come to pieces in a soup or a stew, just to get that texture. I really also love combining it with other vegan egg substitutes. So like if I'm doing a tofu scramble, I'll use a bunch of tofu and then maybe I'll drizzle a little bit of like the just egg on there just to give it like a little bit of a kick. But I think that one of my classic favorites is just sautéing it with goddess dressing, with like a tahini dressing. That always has a really nice result.
What goes into that dressing?
Goddess dressing is, I think, tahini, vinegar, some herbs, and I think some yeast extract also, and I think and maybe oil. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds.
Am I right? Am I right? Will you guys correct me?
I would say some lemon and herbs, but who am I?
Oh, lemon! You're lemon. I forgot. Yes, you're right.
Okay, thank you very much for those recipes. They were brilliant. Let's go on now to a little bit more of the fine, perhaps dark art of vegan cheese making. Someone whose name I'm almost certainly going to pronounce wrong, Decillas, I don't know, from the vegan footwear company. Some would say how apt, wants to know what's the best Parmesan recipe. I mean, let's start with Anton.
Four ingredients. One, I use blanched almonds. I really prefer these nuts over cashews or any other nuts. I love their texture. I love the fact that there is a little bit of a fiber to it, and so that's number one. Number two is obviously nutritional yeast and obviously salt. And another two, kind of just a tiny little bit, are garlic powder and onion powder. I toast the blanched almonds until they're just turning golden color, not more than that. And then simply using a food processor, I would just ground those with nutritional yeast, garlic powder, onion powder. So let's say you're using 1 cup of blanched almonds, I would go then for 4 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, and then a teaspoon, even 2 maybe, of garlic powder and 1 teaspoon of onion powder. But the most important ingredient in here is salt. The reason for that is that what we're trying to recreate when we're creating a Parmesan is this really strong complexity of fat, saltiness, sweetness, savouriness. It's like that's what makes Parmesan such a desirable, such a praised cheese for its incredible, rich and complex flavor.
It's a good point that I think Parmesan very often is kind of used as a seasoning more than a cheese.
Correct.
Because it is
Absolutely.
so salty. Isa, do you make Parmesan for your restaurants?
So I do a pepita Parmesan. So that's pumpkin seeds, and they have a Parmesan like quality already, which I really like. So I'll just blend that with some nooch, some oil, and toast it, and then I just call it pepita Parmesan. It kind of looks like and some coconut oil in that too, so it kind of gives you the meltiness as well.
Nice.
And then I do a cashew Parmesan, which is set with coconut oil that you can grate. I do like the Violife, not to bring Violife up again. I like their hard Parmesan. That's yummy. Josh, do you like that?
I find the flavor to be very, very intense, But I think if you're using it in small amounts, it's good. I mean, I've eaten at Isa's restaurants, and I love all of the cheeses that she makes, so I can vouch for them. I mean, not that I need to, because there's so many great reviews.
I don't need your approval.
Yeah, but I love all. I've had the pepita parmesan. It's awesome. Cultured cheese is a microbiome. It is there are bacterias and funguses and cultures that are all interacting with each other, and those flavors intensify over time. We're staying true to those old world methods, and I'm really excited with the parmesans that we've been able to produce. They're remarkably indistinguishable from what I remember dairy Parmesan tasting.
I hope that helps you. I would also say the best commercially produced one that I've tasted, I'm sure the Rhine stuff is probably going to be the best, mate. Probably going to be the best. But if you can find it, it's hard to find. Follow your heart. Make a vegan Parmesan. Now, they do two kinds. One is kind of like shaving. There's one that's like shavings in a sort of shallow, wide tub, which is okay. But they do another one that's like, it's sort of ground finely and it's in a taller jar like their mayonnaise jars. That stuff, that's got that slightly, I'm going to say, vomity note. You know what I mean?
Perfect.
It's got that deep sour thing going on.
What was that? There was like a British one like that went away.
Yes,
maybe 15 years ago.
It was incredibly good.
What was it called?
I can't remember, but I know the one you mean.
I lived for it. It tasted like American like supermarket Parmesan cheese.
Nasty cheese. Yeah, it was great. It was so good. Yeah.
And then
I don't know what happened to that brand. I know.
Do you guys remember Veganrella? Like back in the 90s? Did you ever try Veganrella?
Yeah.
That was the first vegan cheese I ever tasted, even before Tofu slices. Yeah. And Veganrella was like, I mean, I'm sorry if any Veganrella former employees are listening, but it was like eating a bar of soap.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was a bar of soap.
I would say, fake cheese technology has come a long way.
Yeah.
The earliest ones tasted a bit like cork dipped in vinegar or my own calcified tears as I morosely chewed my way through it.
Don't waste
We're really
those.
selling veganism here.
That was then. I'm saying it's different now. It's different now. Jump in. You can't go wrong. Right, let's press on. Mark says, can I have a good cheese sauce recipe, please? I sometimes see random ingredients like carrots or blended cauliflower, and I get so confused with what's best. What sauce recipe do you recommend? Joshua, let's start with you.
I have two approaches with vegan cheese sauces. One of them is like the kitchen sink recipe where you like gather up all the different vegan cheeses that you have in your fridge and you just combine them all and a little chunk of this brand, a little piece of that brand, a sprinkle of the Parmesan. You just like put it all together, put some like either a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of unsweetened like neutral nut milk, and you just get a cream base. The other method, I think, is to use nuts, and similarly to what was being described before. You can soak those nuts for overnight. You can soak them for a couple of hours, and then blend them in the liquid or in a little bit of the liquid. You can add something funky like a little bit of miso, or like the suggestion to use some sauerkraut juice. Some salt, some sweet, and some nutritional yeast, and you can't really go wrong with that. The problem I find with cheese sauces sometimes is if you're cooking with them, they tend to dry out really quickly. So I would defer to the experts, the chefs here, to how to avoid that.
Isa, let's defer to you. And I saw you shaking your head with the cat. I remember that. There was a recipe doing the rounds a couple of years ago, and it was carrots with potato, and you diced them, and then it was kind of very starchy. And
I'm not. If I see carrot, I'm out. I think if you're gonna put a vegetable into your cheese sauce, make it something that's not gonna taste like, that's adding to the flavor, not making it kind of taste like hippie food. I mean, carrot's pretty. And I suppose you can like roast it maybe, but it's still going to have that sweetness that you might not necessarily be looking for in a cheese. Same thing with sweet potato cheeses. Like, I'm not in the market for a sweet cheese, so
No.
I really I know I already said this about other cheeses, but I stick with really like umami flavors and really creamy flavors and things that are going to add more fat and creaminess, not necessarily more like starchiness. Or like a vegetable-y flavor. So for me, like roasted red peppers make a great cheese. It's great to blend into your cheese if you want to go the vegetable route. So roasted red peppers, cashew, nutritional yeast, miso, coconut oil. Again, the coconut oil should be refined, which isn't a bad thing. But it doesn't have the flavor. It won't have that strong coconut flavor. It'll just have that really wonderful creamy meltiness that you're gonna be wanting. And there's like also like nut, if you want to go nut free, like for all the 80s and 90s, really we just did nutritional yeast sauces. So that's just like blending up aromatics like garlic, onion, olive oil, coconut oil, nutritional yeast, some really good vegetable broth, and just blending that up, and that's really nice too. I would definitely stay away from those like fat-free, but potato carrot situations.
I respect your contempt for the fat-free. Anton, what about you?
Well, I've got two options. One is more of a cold, or let's say less cooked cheese sauce. The one that you can like use as a spread or serve it cold, and that would be simply cashew nuts soaked and then blended with onion powder, salt, just a tiny little bit of nutritional yeast. In this case, just a tiny bit, and then I would ferment it for 48 hours in a room temperature, basically. And when you see the kind of air pockets forming, that's when it's ready, and it would develop this very lovely, delicious, sweet, and umami and very lightly sour taste, which is very, very complex in its own way, and something that I use a lot.
Do you cover that? Is it sealed? Like, what do you store it in?
I would cover it.
I would.
It's definitely important to cover it, because that would create a closed chamber. And would allow the fermentation to happen more efficiently and in a more balanced way. As for the hot cheese sauce, actually, maybe some people will find it weird, but in all experiments, I found that cauliflower, the combination of cauliflower, garlic, and mustard provides the best cheese sauce, hot cheese sauce, silky, creamy consistency for a hot cheese sauce. So basically what I would do is I would just roast chunks of cauliflower, just kind of florets picked apart, tossed in oil with peeled cloves of garlic. You can use a whole bulb of garlic per whole head of cauliflower. That would give you probably 2 to 3 liters of this sauce. So basically you combine the two, you roast covered, ideally in tin foil, because that would allow to soften them. You don't want to roast cauliflower until it's really caramelized, because it's a different story. You just want to soften it. Blender, a little bit of cashews. The nuts are essential here, as well as specifically the cashews, because cashews are the fattiest and the creamiest of nuts. The ones that don't leave any fibrous kind of texture. They give out the fatty, the creamiest texture. The key is a very good quality Dijon mustard, and so you would end up with this very light, pale color, even pale color cheese sauce. And then at the end, absolutely essential, extra salt, maybe a touch of olive oil, and nutritional yeast. No matter how weird it sounds, when you boil cauliflower and when you roast it, it smells a little bit funky. But when you put all those ingredients together, and cauliflower and mustard, they just do this magic where they really release this very strong cheesiness, almost like cheddar-like flavor profile, which in my opinion works really well.
Well, I've got a cauliflower in the fridge and it's in trouble now. There you go, Mark. Several options for you to explore there. Possibly quite a quick question. This is from Playtime8978. I don't know who that is, but sounds fun. What's the best addition for... Right? What's the best addition for melty cheese? Would that be tapioca flour? Isa.
For melty cheese, I would go with coconut oil again. Tapioca flour is great for stretchiness. You have to know how to work it because it activates when heated, and it's not. I wouldn't say it's an addition. It would be something that you'd be like cooking with a bunch of other ingredients. I use carrageenan a lot. That for me is the absolute best ingredients if you want a sliceable cheese that's gonna melt and you're a home cook. Carrageenan. You just have to know how to use these different types of thickeners and starches and gels, because they all act differently. So I would definitely just follow. If tapioca is great, and if you're gonna like heat it up with some other like nuts blended, it'll create a really nice stretchiness, but not necessarily meltiness. So I mean, I have a bunch of recipes, obviously. So I love carrageenan-based cheeses for melting.
The only thing I would add is I personally like the arrowroot, and so in order to activate it, it's very simple. It acts the same way as the cornstarch does. So you make a slurry by mixing the flour with water, and then you bring it to high heat and pretty much to a boil. And once the water starts boiling, that's where the starch is activated. What I don't like a little bit about the tapioca is that once it cools down, if it's reheated, that starch-like kind of the kind of sandy-like texture of a starch re-emerges. So it's not my most favorite, but that's all I would add to what Isa said.
This is why I host a podcast and I don't actually manufacture cheese. Quiz Delac says, can I have a good pizza topping substitute? Well, I mean, they're all there, aren't they? If you couldn't have cheese on a pizza, which frankly doesn't make it a pizza, in my opinion, I'm just saying, you can't. What would you have if you couldn't have any cheese, Joshua?
I wouldn't have pizza. I mean,
right?
Then you're just having bread with salt. You're just having bread with vegetables on it. I mean, then you're having focaccia. But I guess it's possible. But I prefer cheese. We have a soft cheese spread that we make with lapsang tea, which is a smoked tea. Yeah. And so it infuses I really don't like artificial smoke flavor. I hate like liquid smoke.
I agree.
It tastes like the bottom of the liquid at the bottom of a garbage can. That's what liquid smoke tastes like to me. So we use stuff that's actually been smoked, which is this lapsang tea, and lapsang tea has like an amber to it and a really nice floral quality, but then you get the depth of the black tea and the smokiness because it's been smoked, as I said. So we have a soft version of that I love to just like spoon it onto a pizza or a bread and bake it, and it'll get nice and bubbly and browned, and you'll get that kind of smoky meatiness that you would expect from like a little bit of that smoked meat flavor in there as well.
And I'm guessing it sort of pools a little bit, like a kind of really melty cheese might.
Yeah, there is, because there's coconut oil in it. It does that. Yeah. It does that nice meltiness.
Yeah. Isa?
Pesto is really nice. I know nobody makes pesto, but pesto is a really nice topping for pizza. So pesto with mushrooms and stuff like that.
You're right.
On the smoking tip, like I agree. Liquid smoke for a home cook, okay, once in a while, but like if you can get smoked items that have already been smoked, that's ideal. So like even smoked paprika, smoked sun-dried tomatoes, those are some really nice pre-smoked things. And it's actually easier than you think to smoke something at home. You can fashion your own little stovetop smoker and make it happen. And that's a really fun way to infuse. Nobody asked, but that's a really fun way to infuse smoky flavor.
Oh no, definitely.
Go back to the tofu and put that in there.
Yeah, totally. I love smoked tofu.
I've been dying to take up smoking.
Put it in
Anton,
your plate.
what's your favorite pizza topping?
In Stoke Newington, there used to be a really good pizzeria place. It was a long time ago. It was called Datte Foco. And their best pizza was actually potato pizza, just sliced potatoes and rosemary. And that was the best thing I've ever tried. Obviously, a part of cheesy pizza, this was truly phenomenal and an eye-opener for me. So I'll give that as a good topping.
I'm conscious of time. Where can people find you and your stuff? Joshua, where should people go?
For Rind, you can go to Instagram, rind.cheese. And if you want to order anywhere in North America, you can order through veganessentials.com. They deliver, or GTFO Vegan. Though they both deliver. If you want to contact me personally, my Instagram page is The Discerning Brute. Say hi, and hope to meet you.
Great. Isa, what about you?
I'm at ilovejoshuakatcher.com.
That's a lie.
I love just.
I'm just trying to make him come bring me some cheese.
Yeah.
So,
Come on.
Isa Chandra on Instagram. Oh, it looks so good. You have to come over, okay? I'm going to give you free mac and cheese tonight. Free everything.
And Anton.
Instagram, Chef Anton Petrov. I also run a plant-based hotline. If you have any questions about plant-based cooking, if you want some recipes developed, you can just hit me up. Also, chefantonpetrov.com.
And there, regrettably, we must leave it. Do subscribe and share the podcast if you're enjoying it. Don't forget, you can always email a question. It's podcast@veganlifemag.com. Veganlifemag.com is where you can subscribe to the magazine, or you can buy it in a shop, or you can download the app. We will be back with more in a week's time. Until then, from me, Jake Yap, bye-bye.
This has been a Swanburst Media production.